been on quite a few of the webinars now, so I recognise your names. So it's nice to speak to you. I have run this webinar before. I ran it when it was probably a more current issue. Not much has happened since then, so I'm going to update you on what has happened, but hopefully this should be a bit of a précis for you. When I last ran the webinar, I had a bit of feedback on it saying, look, can you make it a bit more basic? So can you take it back to basics about holiday pay at the start, which I'm happy to do and which I have done. If there's any questions about anything, as Liz said, just type them in the box. If I can't get back to you, I will try and get back to you after the webinar. It won't be today, but it will be in the near future. So moving on to the webinar today then. Obviously, a lot of you know me already, but my name's Marie Walsh, and I'm a solicitor partner at Consilia Legal, which is my own firm, which I run with 4 other ladies, and we specialise in employment and family matters. I'm also a teacher part-time at the University of Law now in Leeds, and I've lectured at other postgraduate institutions as well, and we do provide in-house training, so if any of this is of interest to you, let us know. So the webinar today then, we're looking at the hype about holiday pay, the law about holiday pay, which is the issue I mentioned earlier, the recent cases, and then where we are now. And then there should be hopefully somewhere that we can take this. So looking first at the hype then, when this came out and it was being discussed in the latter part of last year, we had all this hype around holiday pay. I hate to say it, but I think some of the lawyers in the UK were hyping this up a bit as well. Ooh, change your policies. Come get your contracts changed. It's going to be a nightmare. There'll be unlimited backdated claims to 1998. Task forces set up, and some employers are going to be insolvent. Well, unless you're going to tell me otherwise now in the chat box, I've not come across anybody who's been sent into bankruptcy or insolvency as a result of the holiday pay cases. So I think it's safe to say that this definitely was the hype. Although I suppose if it did get you to look at your contracts and your holiday pay and the way that you make the payments to your employees, that was probably a good thing. Okay, so moving on then, if we look at the holiday entitlement and the legal position. Now I wanted to break this down, and forgive me if I'm teaching you to suck eggs here, but basically I just wanted to recap over where the legal position on holiday pay came from, because that explains where we are now. So we've got the European Working Time Directive, and then we've got the Working Time Regulations. So first of all, for the Working Time Directive, we're looking at Article 7 of the Working Time Directive. This applies to all employees who are employed by public bodies, or as they say in legal speak, emanations of the state. And it's directly effective to these employees, so whatever this directive says goes. This directive provides for 4 weeks annual leave per year. And basically the focus of the directive is a health and safety focus. It's based on rest and recuperation. And this was highlighted to us in a different case which related to sick pay. I think it was over a year ago now, it might be 2, in the case of Lana, where we had a big debate then around whether if you were actually ill, you could accrue your holidays or you had to take your holidays. And the issue in that case that eventually was set down was that you can't be both. You can't be sick and also on holiday. And that the idea of having a holiday entitlement is for rest and recuperation, and you can't be doing that if you're ill. So the two really are separate. And that's where we got to the position on holiday pay and sick pay, whereby you continue to accrue your holidays whilst you're on the sick. And then this other invidious position of, if you go on holiday and you are ill, you can reclaim some of your holidays. Now, I don't know if anybody's come across that yet, but that would be an entirely different webinar again. I've certainly had a few try-ons, and we've certainly amended quite a few contracts in that regard. Okay, that aside, when we're looking at the holiday pay issue, we've then got the working time regulations. Now, as I said, the directive applies to public bodies and emanations of the state. Well, the way that we invoke this in this country for other private employers is via the working time regulations. So these regulations are meant to implement and to give effect to the actual directive, and so that we all benefit from reasonably good terms and that we're acting in accordance with European law. So this is our implementation of the Working Time Directive. I've said Regulation 13, and as you probably all know now, in this country now we get the 5.6 weeks leave, or prorated if you are part-time. So that's 28 days. Some people say, oh, it's 20 days plus bank holidays. That's not necessarily the case, so obviously you don't have to take the 8 days on the bank holidays, but you should be a full-time worker entitled in this country to 28 days leave. That's fine. It used to be 20 days including bank holidays, so check your contracts if you've got old ones, because some of them I have come across recently still haven't been changed. The right to holiday is automatic, so there's no length of service required. And in addition to those 5.6 weeks leave, so your 28 days, you might also have for your employees an additional contractual entitlement. So certainly I've worked in places where you'd get 35 days leave, 28 of them would be statutory, and the additional would be contractual rights. So although that might seem like a basic explanation, I'll come back to it in a minute because it will set the rest of it in perspective for you. Okay, so we're looking at holiday payments then and how these are calculated. So we know what we get, so now we need to know how to pay them, and this is where the issue arose. So the working time regulations say that a worker is entitled to receive a week's pay for each week of leave. So